So simplifying this product to the extent that people were able to understand it then created credibility and trust, and people invest in what they trust. So MMF is just one product, and it has taken prominence, rightly so, because first of all, it's easy to understand, it's easy to invest and disinvest, like invest and redeem. We have made that, just as easy as, just a tap of a button.
Hello and welcome to Make Money, the podcast, your premier guide to personal investing, where we not only tell you but also show you what's happening to your money, why it's happening, and what could happen. All this, of course, guided by conversations as we hold your hand through our Masters of Money, which are our guests here at the podcast. I am happy to reintroduce to you this podcast. We've been away for quite some bit. We are very back and here to stay. Today, we would like to talk about money market funds. You might be familiar with those funds. And I'm happy to introduce to you the guest of the day, Mr. Fred Mburu. Goes back in time. He began in this industry in 2003, and he's actually brought the first money market fund into the country.
Thank you, Kefa. Thank you for having me.
How's the feel being our first guest here?
It's a privilege. It's an honor to be your first guest. I think for me, what's particularly of honor is a topic that you're introducing in this podcast.
We would like to check back with where we left our money market funds. What we've seen is a growth in assets under management, Mr. Mburu, and we are just shy of 600 billion shillings. And what you see, if you look at that data, is a progressive growth in assets under management over time. But now, instead of going back 5 years ago, which is perhaps where the data would take us, I would like you to walk us through back then in 2003. Did you ever imagine that we would actually be crossing 600 billion shillings mark? We have as much assets or as much investments in these funds as you have in pensions and so on.
Thank you, Kefa. Yeah, again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk about investing. It's a topic that is very close to my heart. I have been in the asset management industry for over 25 years, so I've earned my stripes. Back then, when we launched the unit trust, the first collective investment schemes, we were doing it for one primary reason, to enable individuals to participate in investment. I think at some point, investing was done in the traditional form through your usual bank deposits. At that time, also chamas were the vibe of the day. So when we launched these pooled funds, then we had the belief that we were able to transform, and we saw the opportunity that was going to span out in terms of money market funds and other funds.
I would be interested to know, how have you done it? In a sense, the growth we've seen, we are talking of under 600 billion shillings. If you look at the numbers, and that will show you around March 2018, we were not even at 100 billion shillings. Yeah. So I'm interested to know, how have you done it? Most people are more familiar with sellers of insurers, insurance firms, and maybe banks back in the day hawking loans. Perhaps you've not seen the same number of, what I would say, salespeople for money market funds. But what I'm still seeing is that growth has still come through. How differently have you gone onboarding customers and growing these numbers?
Yes, we've achieved significant milestones in terms of this product. I think first and foremost, what we did was to educate the public in terms of what pooling meant, what unit trusts are, to the extent that, in those pioneering days, I felt more as a teacher rather than an investment manager. So we spent a lot of effort, a lot of time educating in the market. Then secondly is also to demystify and to simplify the product. And I think, as you mentioned, money market fund is a flavor of the day. So simplifying this product to the extent that people were able to understand it then created credibility and trust, and people invest in what they trust. So simplifying that did help. I think another further enabler to this was technology. So that, putting this onto IT platforms, making it more accessible, then also just, propelled the growth in terms of this product.
And currently we are talking of about just under 2.5 million people invested in money market funds and all these other collective funds where, of course, it's investors pulling their money together and putting it under the wings of a fund manager and allowing you to invest and earning a dividend together. Effectively, you are investing as a group almost.
Exactly.
Where do you feel other industries perhaps have not been able to have the same level of success as you have had in terms of onboarding customers that quickly, growing assets as much as you have? What do you think has been the special trick to, making money market funds a household name? I mean, if you talk about MMF now, someone has a clue of what you're talking about.
It's true, yeah. MMF, I think, is the buzzword, and I think to some extent also, it has sort of been, synonymous to collective investment schemes. So MMF is just one product, and it has taken prominence, rightly so, because first of all, it's easy to understand. It's easy to invest and disinvest, like invest and redeem. We have made that, just as easy as, just a tap of a button. So I think looking at product development, I think people must look at accessibility and how it is understood by the market. So to the extent that we have achieved those two objectives of, simplifying product and making it very accessible, and also making, entry and exit very easy, then that has helped to, to grow the market.
I think we would now take a look at the most dominant funds. And of course, money market is the buzzword. It's the biggest of all the funds. But we do know you have a selection of other types of funds. We have fixed income funds that will primarily invest in government securities, so your treasury bills and bonds. You also have balance funds that perhaps split equally the investments around. And also what you see others now coming up is the special funds, which of course are very specific in their nature and criteria of investing. Now, I would like to ask the question, yes, you've achieved the money market fund as the household name, and we do know now that's growing, and that's what more people are familiar with. When you say MMF, they have an idea of what you're talking to. How can we bring attention to these other types of funds where we want the same interest in MMFs to be the same interest you see in fixed income, in an equities fund, in a special fund? How do we do that now? You've hit the first base. How do we hit second and third base effectively?
How do we proceed from here? And I think, you rightly mentioned the dominance of the money market fund, and I think rightly so. It is an easy product. It's well understood. But I think that now becomes a platform to then build onto other investment types. And I say that, if you're invested in a money market fund, yes, you've only just dipped your toe. If you want to learn how to swim, then is to venture out to other products that are available. Money market fund, yes, we demystified it. We stopped talking the jargon in terms of our technical jargon about NAVs and duration and convexity. We just spoke, very simple to the market, so they understood that. I think for investors, it's then now, yes, having understood that and having tested the waters by investing in a very simple product, then are you able to then venture out and, and find out what else is available. There are other products that are available. There are the equity market funds, there are the balance funds, there are special funds. So all of those options are available. So it's about achieving your basic goal, investing into a money market fund, then now building on that to then, align your longer-term wealth creation and longer-term investment goals by accommodating other investment options that are available.
Do you take the time to interest investors here? We have 2.4 million, which is 1 million more than those in the NSC. So you have quite the base. Yeah. Are you taking your time to let them know that, hey, beyond MMF, there's something else, so that you're not just stuck to the MMF narrative, to your entry of double-digit returns to high single-digit returns? Are you informing basically your clients that, hey, you've done well with the MMF, there's more to do, there's this and that? Are you doing that as part of investor education?
Yeah, investor education is a continuous process. It's not a one-off. We do offer various products through various fund managers. So there is a constant flow of information and opportunities. I think also what's making that more relevant now is perhaps just looking at what is happening to interest rates. Yes, we enjoyed high double-digit and returns on money market funds for most of last year. That is beginning to taper down now this year. So investors then, those that are discerning for return, then will start looking at different options. And we do have different options. Stock market is doing extremely well now. We have seen double digits, 20, 30, 40% in returns on the stock market. So there is the equity funds that are available for those who are sort of cautious about their risk. Again, balance funds are also available in the market, and those do sort of give you, a sensible balance between, money market instruments and the stock market opportunities.
Yeah. Can we get investors into the other types of funds? Perhaps the other question I do have is, we've seen a lot of the money market funds or the funds collectively go a lot at customers with telling them, hey, you earn 16%, earn 15%, earn 17%. Those interest rates are no longer as high as they used to be, and what, of course, we expect is single digit. For a customer who's already used to earning 16, 17, 18%, how do you keep them in when they start seeing that their rates are now 8, 7, 9%, struggling to touch 10%?
Yeah.
How do you keep them interested, especially when it's the return you offered that had them in?
One very important theme about investing is, first of all, to assess, your risk tolerance. So yes, money market funds are typically that safe haven for you. With that safety, you get ordinarily lower returns than other products. 2024 was perhaps peculiar when we got interest rates of 16, 18%. That's not normal. I think what we are seeing now is normalization of where interest rates should perhaps be for the benefit of the country and the economy. I think chasing return in its own is probably a bit misleading. I think people need to look at that vis-a-vis the risk that they are taking. Money market funds, if your risk tolerance is low, then perhaps money market fund is a place for you. Interest rates will be low teens right now, probably up to 9, 10%. If you have got tolerance for higher risk, then there are other products. But I would not be one to advocate, investors migrating wholesale to products that they don't fully understand. So it's important that you assess your own risk appetite before jumping into other products, simply because the yield that you obtained in 2024 is no longer available in the money market fund in 2025. And remember, the returns on money market funds are also, a reflection of underlying interest rates. So if you look at treasury bills, for example, those have come down. So there is a direct correlation between the general interest rate environment in the country and what your money market funds offer.
We've taken quite the time to discuss the customer and what they are doing and what they should be seeing in terms of interest rates. Yeah. Let's take some time and move back to you, the fund manager. And the question here is, we've seen quite the number of players, new entrants every time. The Capital Markets Authority is always approving someone to go and launch a fund. Of course, once a fund manager or someone interested in investing in the space gets to see that there's quite the return to earn, there's quite some fund management fee to earn, they will come into the space. And what we've seen is quite a number. And I would like just to touch on some of those numbers we've seen. We have about 50 collective investment schemes. So those are effectively 50 fund managers playing in that space. We also have over 230 funds spread across, the MMFs, the fixed income, and the equity funds. Maybe the question here is, do we have too many players? And I know you could look at the top 5 and see how much they're holding. They control quite a lot also. So we have a lot of smaller players outside the top 5 who are actually holding fewer sums. We talk about overbanking. When you speak to a banking industry profession, they'll maybe reference to you about overbanking. Yeah. Do you have a case of maybe over MMF'd? Perhaps if that's the word here. Do we have too many funds chasing perhaps fewer customers, or maybe we've grown to a place where perhaps we've reached the peak? Do we still have the adequate number of players to play in that space, or perhaps might we need some consolidation also in that space?
First of all, competition is healthy. The more players there are, it shows that there is something happening in the ecosystem. It shows that there is interest. Just packing that, and barriers to entry are quite low. So we encourage competition. From where I sit at the Fund Managers Association, I think we should now be looking at next level. Are we just increasing logos, or are we offering now differentiation in the market? So there is something called a choice paralysis. When you have too many players offering very similar products, then you sort of have investors, torn in between, how do I choose one money market manager compared to another? So we need to move from that as an industry to now differentiation and quality, so that we then offer potential investors that opportunity to then pick and choose. And what we are seeing is there is a move to special funds, for example. There is a move to also ESG compliance. So there's thematic funds that will begin coming to the market that will give investors, additional choice and additional information in terms of where they can place their money.
And you touched on a very specific matter, choosing an MMF fund. And I'll tell you for case in point, I sit down at my desk, I'm working, and sometimes once in a while, not every day, of course, you get someone coming to your desk and they're like, hey, how do I differentiate? Why should I pick fund A, not B, not C? How does someone, especially new to the space, go about picking when maybe the allure or the advertisement will tell you the return you can earn over a year, or our fund management fees might be lower, or the name, sometimes people just go for the name, I'm familiar with name X. I've never heard of player C. Player E, I'm not so sure about them, but maybe I'm more comfortable with player A and B. How is differentiation, in a sense, happening within a space with so many players, so many funds to choose from?
I would imagine many investors would just be chasing the yield, going for the highest end return possible, which is fine on one hand, but I think it's important to go beyond just the yield, the interest rate that has been declared by a certain MMF, and begin to also, get more information. For example, do you have access to the fact sheet? At the fact sheet level, there is a bit more disclosure in terms of, spread, in terms of asset allocation, in terms of, who are the players in that specific and unit trust. So it's about reading, the fact sheet, annual accounts, participating in the annual general meetings, and basically trying to understand what is driving this fund manager to achieve those results. So it is incumbent upon investors to then delve a bit deeper over and above the return that they are getting.
Yeah, looking at the sky, if the sky is the limit and you're already at 600 billion shillings managed by your fund managers and you're some of your members, where is this sky if the sky is the limit? How much more, in a sense, can we get those funds to go?
If you ask me, yes. Going back in my days, I didn't think AUMs, assets under management for collective investment schemes, would be as good as they are right now. But we had the belief at that time when we were launching and the product. We had the belief because we had seen how and similar products had performed in other jurisdictions. You ask me where the sky is, I think it's north of 2 trillion shillings. I think we are barely scratching the surface. A lot has happened, as I mentioned earlier. We have investor awareness now. We've got technology enablers. And we also have a shift in culture in terms of savings, perhaps driven also by, just economic circumstances, just the cycles of what's happening in the economy. People are now aware that they should be saving for their long term. 2 trillion is not impossible. I would imagine the next perhaps 3 to 4 years, I've got no doubt in my mind that, that there's still room to grow. I think if you ask me where I'm benchmarking that number from, if you just look at, recently I read a banking sector report, and if you look at, deposits within the entire banking sector, end of last year, probably about 6 trillion shillings. So it just shows you that, there is scope in growing the current, asset base for unit trust from the current 600 million shillings. So we have lots of potential. Sky is north of 2 trillion.
The question here to wind it up is, you represent the Fund Managers Association.
I do.
Many of us are familiar with the individual funds, MMFX, MMFY. What exactly is the scope of work for the Fund Managers Association, and where can we find some of your work?
As FMA, I represent the Fund Managers Association. I am the founding CEO of this association. We've got, 2-3 key pillars and within the association. One is that we want to elevate professionalism within the association. We want standardization. We would like to see, standardization in terms of how our fund managers and report, disclosures and all that. But also, we are an advocacy association. So we lobby on behalf of our membership. With that lobbying would spread across policymakers, regulators, just to ensure that, that the ecosystem is fit for purpose in terms of where our members operate. Integrity is also at the top of our list in terms of, what we stand for, improving professionalism, standardization, and integrity right across the fund management fraternity.
That's Mr. Fred Mburu, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for being on the podcast and opening our new season effectively here today. I hope we'll engage more as this space continues to grow and as we continue to register the interest we do see. My name is Kefa Muirore. That has been another episode of Make Money, the podcast, a production by the Nation Media Group. And until I catch you on the next episode, make that money work for you. Goodbye.